Hey, what's up? Griffin here. I'm a 16-year-old challenger jungler, and I've been challenger since season 10. Graves is my top 3 most played champions, and I'm here to talk about the best crit Graves setup for season 13. Summoner spells. For summoner spells, I'd recommend Ghost Smite instead of Flash. Crit Graves is a way more auto attack reliant champion than its other builds. Ghost allows you to close the gap against the enemy champions. If you are at melee range of them, you hit more of your pellets and your crit pellets, which in return offers you more DPS. The runes. This is the standard rune page that you should always take for Graves. For primary tree, go into precision, fleet footwork, overheal, alacrity, last stand. Secondary runes would be sorcery, gathering, storm, and absolute focus. Fleet and overheal is what really makes this build work. You must run these runes and not triumph. Some things you can change about this build setup is that you can look to take bloodline for extra healing, although I believe it is not necessary since your lifesteal is already really high and the extra attack speed is nice. You could also run tenacity rune, but if you need tenacity, I just recommend going merc treads. If their team is really CC heavy, stacking tenacity is not bad. You can rub Coup de Grace, but I prefer Last Stand as I think it is a flat out better rune than Coup. It's just preference. It also synergizes with Absolute Focus. When you're high HP, Absolute Focus will be active, and if you're low HP, Last Stand will be active. You can also look to go Water Walking instead of Gathering Storm for better early game dueling, but I prefer Gathering Storm as it helps you scale better. Also, if you have a heavy shielder or healer like Soraka, Lulu, Soda, etc., you can look to run Resolve Tree for secondary runes instead. Take Revitalize and Conditioning for secondary runes, as Revitalize gives 5 to 10% extra healing and shielding, which works on all of your shields and healing too. Although without a shielder or healer, I don't believe this secondary is necessary due to the fact that your shields and heals are already insane, so it's better to get more damage. For your build, you should always look to run Green Smite. Never go blue/red smite with this build, as all this shield synergizes. The other smites are just not as good. The first 2 items of this build should be always Shield Bow and Bloodthirster. These are the best 2 items in the game for Graves and offer the largest power spikes at 2 items compared to any other build. When you finish your Bloodthirster, you will have your Green Smite buff finish, which gives extra shielding and 20% tenacity and slow resistance. It also has a synergy shield combo with Shield Bow passive, Bloodthirster shield, Green Pet shield, and extra overheal rune shield. When building into Shield Bow, prioritize 80 items, building crit cloaks last. Try to, if possible, on your first back go Noon Quiver. This will greatly increase your clear speed and give you the option of playing for Drakes. For Bloodthirster, you should prioritize BF Sword, then Long Sword, and then finish your Vamp Scepter. Buy crit cloak last before finishing Bloodthirster. After these 2 core items, the rest of your items are really just situational. Typically, the rest of your build would consist mostly of items like LDR, Mortal Reminder, Infinity Edge, Black Cleaver, RFC, PD, or my personal favorite, Spirit Visage. You should build Spirit Visage if you have enchanters/healers. Even if you have no enchanters, this item provides a lot of value for the sheer amount of effective HP with the passive and your shielding and the MR alone. Build IE for damage against low armor/low range. Build LDR and Black Cleaver against tanks. LDR is more damage for yourself. Black Cleaver is more tanky and also supports your team's DPS. Build Mortal when needing heal reduction and armor pen. Build RC against long range champs. And build PD for more movement speed and DPS. Very rare to go PD, but it's possible to sell boots later for PD as a good substitute. Other niche items that you could look to buy are Force Nature against heavy AP, but Spirit Visage will typically be better with this build. If they're really heavy AP, you could go both. If you need more armor, buy Frozen Heart or Randuin's Omen. Typically, I don't recommend armor items on this champion because of his grit. I would much rather get CDR or crit to stack your grit faster. Gargoyle is not a bad option and synergizes with this build well for a mix of resistances and extra shield. Boots choice. In my opinion, the order from best to worst boots in this build would be at number 1, Merc Treads, number 2, Tabbies, number 3, Swifties, and number 4, Lucidity boots. Merc Treads should always be built against heavy CC. If they have heavy auto attackers, build Tabbies. Tabby shouldn't be built for armor though, since your E gives you a lot of armor. If they don't have heavy CC and are not heavy AD, but instead have a lot of range champions with slows, Swifties and Lucidity boots are also decent options for those specific games. I personally prefer Swifties, especially in the meta with a lot of slow champions in the support role like Ashe, Karma, Lulu, etc. But Lucidity boots has its place if Tabby slash Merc slash Swifties aren't good. You should always try to get your tier 1 boots before your mythic and delay finishing your boots till after your Bloodthirster. Pros and cons versus other builds. The crit build on Graves is a better build than the Bruiser build on Graves. When Bruiser Graves has one item, Bruiser feels better early. But the crit Graves build path towards shield bow is preferred for me. Noon Quiver is a way better item than Whip for Graves, but as soon as crit Graves has shield bow plus BT, crit Graves does more damage and feels more tanky with all the shield. The crit Graves build is by far the best scaling build for Graves, which gives you the ability to consistently 1v9 every game. At 2 items and onward, you will have shield bow plus Bloodthirster shield, Rune Pet shield, and Overheal Rune shield. And as the game goes on and your Gathering Storm kicks in, you are able to consistently stay on the map with crazy sustain and damage. On top of all the shields you have, you can constantly test the enemy and poke them whilst ignoring poke yourself with your insane sustain as you trade Overhealed shield for their actual HP. The cons of this build is that the build path towards early crit items is not the best. Building Crit Cloak early game for the first 2 items feel really bad, as Crit Cloak is typically just a bad early game item. At 1 item, Shield Bow only gives you 50 AD, so your damage isn't good early, but is great once you get a BF sword to build into your Bloodthirster. Gathering Storm also helps compensate for the lack of AD in combination with Absolute Focus to offset this with the extra AD. Playstyle of this build. The playstyle of this build should be heavy farming and playing really selfishly. You should want to be at least even with this build, and with building Noon Quiver, you can clear camps really fast. You should prioritize clearing camps off CD. With your build, you should have a decent amount of MR with Spirit Visage and Merc Treads, so you should try to stack your grit off objectives or camps, which lets you join fights with 200 plus armor and a lot of MR. Also with this build, you really want to play with your HP bar and shields late game. Don't be afraid to trade your HP. You're very safe with your dash, passive armor stacking, and overheal shielding. In the off chance you lose too much HP in a trade, you'll always be able to sustain it back up with your life steal. Just make sure to not fully commit and die. If you have any questions, I stream on Twitch every day, so you can ask me questions there, or I read all my YouTube comments, so leave a question in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching this guide, and leave a like and subscribe. Ooh, that rhymes.
I wish we stayed the same. I got way too many thoughts in my brain, but I got memories that run through my veins.